Hello everyone, Mark here. Thought I'd give you an update on where we are with some of the activism that we've been doing recently, especially with regards to the whole child abuse situation and the safeguarding policy of Jehovah's Witnesses and the Watchtower Corporation. I picked up the Organised to Accomplish Jehovah's Will Green Book, you know, the baptism book. I picked it up this morning very quickly. Just every time I open it, I find something in there that's absolutely fascinating. But on page 5 and 9, which I'm going to come on to in another video at some point, it talks there about this celestial chariot, and that they show and put a parallel to the Watchtower Corporation being Jehovah's celestial chariot here on the earth, and that it's ever moving forward, which I find fascinating, that they expect the new Jehovah's Witnesses that are being baptized to accept this as gospel, literally, that they are following the real truth. When in fact, when we start digging a little bit deeper and underneath the layers of secrecy and the insular processes and procedures that Watchtower use, it reveals a whole new level of bad practices that one can only assume, if this really was God's celestial chariot, we know he would run a mile from it. Let me explain. Back in 2012, we started writing to Parliament through my MP to the Under Secretary of State for Families and Children, a guy by the name of Edward Timpson. Now, whether or not Edward is going to be in his job after the election in a couple of weeks' time is probably up for question now. But whoever takes on the new role in another month's time, we shall be continuing to write, and I'll explain the reasons why. I started writing to Edward Timpson with regards to the fact that I felt that the Watchtower needed to be scrutinised for its complete lack of any safeguarding policy for their children within the organisation, and that the children themselves had no voice, and that here in the UK there was a need to highlight this, that many of them were being molested, many of them were being raped, and have been for now many decades, and the amount of paedophiles that we have convicted in the UK is extremely disproportionate to the membership figure, and these are the convicted ones. When we come on to the other stuff of the two-witness rule, my goodness, this is just the tip of the iceberg. But anyway, I wrote to Edward Timpson on a number of occasions through my MP, and we would just keep swapping and changing letters of correspondence. But it became clear to me that he wasn't taking the Body of Elders letter of 2012 seriously. He felt that this was something that had nothing to do with the UK, that it was a United States-based religion, and therefore he was basically washing his hands of it. So this is what, in part, from Edward, this is what he said, and I'm just going to read part of it. I won't, for the sake of the timing of this video. So it says that the closure in your letter seemed to be a copy of a circular from the Jehovah's Witness organisation in New York, which appears to be addressed to local congregations in the USA. It would not be relevant for the UK government to comment on guidelines for use in the USA. Okay, so that's basically where Edward and I, we reached a hiatus really, because he wasn't prepared to look at it or acknowledge it any further from this point onwards. But what did happen at the time, within 2012, was that my own local police department here in our county, in Gloucestershire, I've been working very closely with them on this, and the Child Safeguarding Board, those two we were in contact with, and Kate, the child abuse investigation teams. to look at these policies and see what on earth could actually be brought to the attention of the authorities, to start looking at ways of understanding how we could combat the very dangerous policies and procedures of Watchtower. And indeed, the Body of Elder letter was one that I shared with them. Yes, I did. And the police were horrified by what they were reading. The Child Safeguarding Board were horrified by what they were reading. In fact, it was almost disbelief that an organisation of this magnitude would be following such what seemed to be extremely reckless and archaic laws to safeguard their children, apparently. So what happened was that a senior group of elders from Gloucestershire were summoned to a meeting with the police to discuss the policies and procedures of the safeguarding policy, and that's exactly what happened. But as I advised the police on this at the time, that the chances of you getting any information from this group of men would be extremely limited. They will wear a nice suit, they'll smile at you and shake your hand, and then they'll refer you straight to the legal department, or they will record the questions and then get back to you through correspondence from the legal department. That's all they will ever do. And to the frustration of the authorities, that's exactly what happened. What seemed to be an age later, many months later, we eventually did receive a letter from the Bethel in Ridgeway, from Bible and Tract Society Watchtower, and it came through in April 2013. And the letter was very slick, as it always is, outlining the fact that they were basically Teflon proof, that the law in this country was, as it is, something that they felt and claimed that they were working within. The letter is very cocky in its approach and feels that it has a rock solid foundation to just say, well, come on then, show us where we're going wrong. That's basically what the letter said. But in part, one of the areas where they feel that they have a pivotal piece of information within their position in law, it's this. And I quote, and this is from Bethel Legal Department, that the congregation does not and will not provide or sponsor any activities that fall within the scope of regulated activity relating to children, as defined in the Safeguarding Vulnerable Groups Act of 2006, as amended from time to time in equivalent legislation in other parts of the United Kingdom and Ireland, including such activities as creches, playgroups, Sunday schools, youth groups, clubs, choirs and camps. The policy expressly provides for congregation elders to comply with any relevant laws to ensure that parental responsibility holders because aware of allegations as soon as practical, and in cases when a child may still be at risk of significant harm, as defined by law and decided cases, to take measures to ensure the matter is reported to the police or other appropriate authorities. Sounds wonderful, doesn't it? Then it goes on to say, on the second page, the so-called two-witness rule, inverted commas, has no relevance to the reporting of crime to secular authorities. This pastoral canon, which is founded in Scripture, does not appear in the policy statement. That's quite profound. So the two things I've brought out there from this letter from Bethel that came through to my Chief Constable here in Gloucestershire, through to the Police Department, through to the Child Safeguarding Policy Board, and through to my MP, and through to me, make it clear that they don't work with children, and therefore they're not covered under the Safeguarding Vulnerable Groups Act of 2006. They don't do the playgroups, the Sunday schools and all of those things. And frustratingly, this is where they escape the disclosure barring service activities, where they have to then register themselves through this and be criminal, have the records checked. They don't go this far because they claim they're not working with children. And then, just as a cursory point at the end, they talk about the two-witness rule as having no relevance to the reporting of crime to secular authorities. It's quite incredible, isn't it? So anyway, I don't think it's ever been done before, but it's, at least at this stage, a group of elders were questioned about this on a local level. And although we weren't discussing any individual cases, we were looking at the generics of the policies and the procedures that were put in place. So that's where I am with that so far. But then I'm going to come on to something else. If you remember, Edward Timpson has just mentioned there, well, not just, but a while back, that we had reached this point where this was an American religion. Well, thanks to our sources now, we have the Body of Elders letter that's addressed from the United Kingdom, from Bethel here in the United Kingdom. I now have a copy of this particular Body of Elders, October 1st, 2012, child abuse letter, proving emphatically that the things written within this particular letter belong to the Watchtower Corporation UK. Therefore, by definition, everything that we have already said and in correspondence to within the walls of Parliament now become relevant again, and that no longer can the Houses of Parliament, and in this case the Under Secretary of State for Children and Families, can dismiss it as an American religion. So when I say that the time has gone by, my goodness, it certainly has. There's a lot more to do. But we will be going back to Parliament. We will be actually talking again once we know who is the new Under Secretary of State for Families and Children. And we'll be starting that correspondence again. Only this time it will be with UK relevant documentation that we now have in our possession. And I will be, and others, reminding those particular officials and the civil servants that work with them that this was dismissed on the grounds that it was Americanized and not from the UK. This clearly shows that we now have a case. You remember this particular letter, it's a well-travelled path, but there are many things within it, and one of the things that astounds most people is the type of language that's in here. On paragraph 15 it says, keep in mind that the branch office, not the local body of elders, determines whether one who has sexually abused a child is considered a known child molester. So it's Bethel, the legal department, that decides someone that's abused a child sexually. It's them that decides who is a predator and who isn't. It's incredible, the language that's in this letter. But anyway, that's what's going back to Parliament shortly. But where they do fall short, and something that Louise Good did last year, wrote an excellent letter, and I'm sure she won't mind me just in part reading something that she's put in here that shows the inadequacies of the child safeguarding policy. She's done some really good work on this, and the letter is excellent, and I think and believe that we'll be using this in the future, because it's extremely important that we do this for the safeguarding of those children. And in part, these are the type of things that this particular corporation, who think that they have a child safeguarding policy, are falling short of the mark. And I quote what Louise has written here in part. She's got eight points here, which I just wanted to bring out, where she talks about, however, due to the points outlined below, the Jehovah's Witness organisation has become known as a paedophile paradise, and it is even rumoured that paedophiles are actually attracted to this religion because of the superior protection it affords abusers compared to other churches and organisations. The legal but highly concerning policies are listed below. Evidence for each point can be found in the appendix. And then she goes on. There are no safeguarding officers in the congregations in the UK. There is a legal department at the head office in London, but no named safeguarding officer. And she can prove this. She's been there to discuss this with them. The public child safeguarding policy of 2010 is extremely hard to obtain. Members of the congregations do not know that there should be a safeguarding officer or that they should be allowed to call him. Members are not allowed to phone the legal department and speak to a safeguarding officer. If an abuse concern is reported to an elder in the congregation, the matter will not be reported to the police. If an abuse concern is reported to an elder in the congregation and the victim does not have two separate eyewitnesses to the event, the matter will not be followed up internally. And 8, if a victim of family or of the victim reports the matter to the police instead of the elders, they will be shunned informally or formally. And there is lots more in this document that she's done some excellent work on. The reason I mention all this today is to say that we are doing more. We invite others to get involved. This is a worthwhile piece of your life to get involved with, we believe. We're passionate about it. And October the 2nd of 2015, Friday, we will be down in Parliament Square, as already mentioned in other videos. So we're getting quite a few of us thinking about coming down now, which is fantastic, and planning this into their diaries. It's an education day. It's not a throwing eggs and carrots and cabbages at people and shouting and banging shields and things like that. This is all about educating in the symbolic area of Parliament Square in Parliament, the place where the legislation and the powers that be can make changes. We hope to have some press contact down there, but also politicians, the new ones that are elected in May, a couple of weeks' time. We want to invite them from the constituents that are coming along on the day to ask their MP to come along and just talk to us so that we can give them a handout of the type of things that we've just been reading. So yes, Watchtower could say to the world that it's working within the law in the United Kingdom. But that doesn't actually mean that they're actually protecting their children. The two things could not be far more polarized. They are not protecting their children, as we know, and we can see that the whole safeguarding policy is completely flawed. It's a calendar. There are more holes in it than a calendar. It is completely rampant for hiding child abuse rather than protecting the children. So I'd like to finish there, but just to let everybody know that that is the update so far. Please get involved. You can find this information yourselves. I'm going to be passing this letter now, the UK letter, to Our, because I know that the Our board want it to be able to write something, I believe, as well, aawa.com. And from there it will be dispersed out to others as well, because it needs to be out there. We need to get this out there, and others to remonstrate wherever they can, use this document within the UK to prove quite conclusively that this is not an American religion. It's worldwide, it's universal. Each country has this letter, and now we have the UK one. So this is small measures, small little steps, one at a time. Years go by, but it's one that we're all prepared to just keep moving with and not allow it to, when we get these stumbling blocks, that we can keep going and exposing the celestial chariot that is supposed to be directed by God, which of course, the more we look at it, the more absurd it sounds. Thank you for listening, and we'll keep you updated with any other Parliament Day stuff as we get closer to the time. Okay, bye for now.